Here's the question. How do you make the impossible possible? Simple. Remove the I am, the ego. Now, how do you step into that newfound possibility? With a series of small intentional steps. Never forget, the greatest among us started from humble beginnings. But to truly unlock your potential, realize you're here for something greater. If you're yearning for more than just a good life, let's take that small step together to reach greatness. Welcome to the Greatness from Small Beginnings podcast, where we're talking to those who have gone from mediocrity to motivated, overlooked to overachieving, forgettable to unforgettable. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome, Gary. I want to introduce Gary Akiyama. I've known Gary for quite a while. I would not say we're friends, like we're advanced acquaintances. Like there's never an issue, right? We always have pleasant conversation, right? We see each other at church often, or occasionally at some other event, very occasionally.
Yes.
But we've spent some time sitting on a board with each other.
True.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And, working on projects from that standpoint, more thinking probably than actually hands-on in those cases. But my main connection with Gary's family is through his wife. Ann and I have done a lot of ministry projects together over the years, almost all children's ministry. She has a real heart for that. I have a lot of children, kind of pushed my heart that direction.
Right.
And so I wouldn't call it collided, like we were just in the same zone, in the same rooms often. And often I was in a leadership position, but not always. Sometimes we were just working together. And then I would sometimes tuck in under her to be helpful to her. And it was mostly church related, of course. But one of those stories was I was leading a ministry that at our little church in Southeast Portland got up to almost 300 kids. That didn't include staff, and it was complete craziness. And man, was I happy to have her shoulder to shoulder working on those kinds of things. Of course, there was a lot of staff that was also really great. And as I was on my way here, I realized, you know what? Gary was part of that. Now, was he at the facility often during those times? No, but in much the same way that when my wife serves in something, I'm in. Like we're in the same boat. So my wife and I, we're rowing together through this life. And when she's involved in something, so am I.
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely supported Ann in that role. And like you said, Keith, you got to be all in. That's the only way it's going to work. But once again, hey, thank you for inviting me to your podcast here.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be on it. And I was just thinking the other day when you asked me, like, really? Why do you want me? but anyway, we've been acquaintances. I'll say we're friends, but we're not really tight friends, but that's okay. I mean, I think we have a mutual respect for each other. I certainly have a big respect for you and your family.
Yeah. So do I. So we're going to be going into the story, the Gary Akiyama and Ann and the family story a little bit. And so as we push into that, let me preface it by saying, the name of the podcast is Greatness from Small Beginnings. Well, part of my story is my dad's, his father wasn't around, so my dad broke cycles. Okay. Giving me the opportunity to not carry that kind of baggage.
Right.
And so he's created. Now, if he was sitting right here, he would admit he was not the greatest father. He didn't have an example. He was not even the greatest. He was in business for a while, not a great businessman. Had to get out of the business, so it wouldn't go broke.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, he had these things that maybe in some ways we would call them failures, but what he succeeded at was breaking bonds from the past generations, generational curses, so to speak, so that me and my brother and my sisters could have opportunity. I suspect there's some of that in your story too. So your parents, did they immigrate here from Japan? Do I understand that part of the story?
Well, my grandparents immigrated from Japan,
Okay.
but actually my parents, my mom and dad, were born and raised here in the United States, actually in Hood River, Oregon. And that's a story in itself. As you know, they were interned in the internment camps when Japan, remember when they bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7th, and that started things becoming real tough times and rough times. And ironically, though, my dad at the time was in the U.S. Army. So it's kind of an oxymoron that, here they are interning my mom and her brothers and sisters and her parents and relatives. And yet my dad, he was never interned because he was in the U.S. Army. And he was part of that world-famous 442nd Regiment that was known as Go for Broke, because they fought in the military for the United States, even though all their family and relatives were interned. But the reason that we got labeled Go for Broke is they wanted to prove their loyalty to the United States because they were U.S. citizens at the time.
And it was mostly Japanese who were in that
right. It was
unit?
all Japanese or Hawaiians, but, of Asian descent back then.
That were in that unit.
They were in that unit.
So they had a purpose, even a higher purpose.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had to leave, or not me, but my parents and relatives had to leave their farm. They had a farm in Hood River, which is a big agricultural area back then, and still is to this day. Right. With apples and cherries and pears and even some peaches, and so they had to leave their property or sell their property like pennies on the dollars. I mean, it was ridiculous. They didn't have a choice; they had to sell that. But through all that, Keith, it's ironically, as they came back, they were fortunate that they got their land back. They had neighbors that were sympathetic to what happened to them and to the war and everything, and they were one of the very fortunate few that got their land back. So
that is probably an amazing story. Had we been there, a fly on the wall to see that would have been. There's a lot of grace there, a lot of mercy.
Right. So that's kind of the background, and growing up with my parents and dad, it's still to this day of even the business and things I've done, he's always said, have good morals, good ethics, and just good respect for everybody, because you don't get respect, it's earned. And even more so in their plight that they're in. You may not like the situation, Gary. Hey, look, you're Asian, you're Japanese. It could be a tough world out there, but if you're respectful, that will speak for itself. So I've always learned that, thought that, Keith, and even to this day, I implement that in what I do.
Yeah, that high level of integrity. Right?
Correct.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit of your story, and you might dovetail some of that influence. I know my dad didn't talk a lot about his story, where he was shorted in life, or he didn't have whatever it is he wanted his kids to have. He didn't actually spend a lot of time talking about it. And maybe you can kind of push into that a little bit too, but how did that affect you and your had a desire to kind of honor that they did, that hard thing they went through, hard things, the periods of life. Like, how do you honor that? And what have you done, so to speak, with your life as their son? Like, Jerry, what are you going to do with your life? What have you done that has kind of honored that for them?
Yeah, that's, like my dad, he didn't really want to talk about the war too much, and especially my family didn't want to talk about the internment camp. In fact, they really didn't talk about it much until I started asking questions. I think maybe I was in high school, maybe late junior high, but they really didn't want to talk about it. And when I would ask them questions, it would be short answers. Yes, no, maybe. I mean, it was very, very vague. Yeah. Until I got older, then, they would tell me more details. It was like, you don't need to know what you don't know. type of thing almost.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell that they wanted us, my brother and I, to really earn respect in the community, earn respect when we went to school or when we had our jobs after school. Not necessarily on the farm. I did other jobs in my hometown, kind of guiding myself toward what I kind of wanted to do, but wasn't sure. I know I didn't want to be a farmer. That's hard work.
It became obvious. Early.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's hard work getting up at 5 or 6 in the morning and coming home about 5 or 6 in the evening. No, I did it because, and I'm glad I did it now because looking back now over my life, that was, probably one of the best parts of growing up, doing hard work. And, I wanted to show respect to my parents. That was one way to honor them, of what they went through. And even though that was not my intention to have a farm, but it helps me to this day just in the good work ethic.
Yeah. In one way or another, I have 6 boys and a girl, as you know.
Right.
In one way or another, each of them have either by their actions, but all the boys, I believe, but maybe except one, have come to me at some point or another and said something like, back in the day, I hated you.
Right.
Because I have a construction business.
Okay.
And it's early morning.
Yes, you do.
And what inevitably happened is they had big plans on Friday. We'd work late on Friday. It seemed like it just was the way it worked every week.
Right.
And they said, I hated you back then. Man, get up, bro. I didn't want to do any of that. And one of them actually said those words. Back then, I hated you. But today, because of something that happened where they had to work extra, long day, put in the extra effort, multiples of the same effort, each of them have said, but I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. My friends were on vacation with their family and I was working. Now I see the benefit.
Right. Well, yeah, and we couldn't go on vacation when most people did because that was the time for harvesting. When you have the apples and the pears and the cherries and all that. That peak month is basically the whole summer through fall. So it was real tough to go on vacations like maybe your neighbors did or other people, your friends would. And so we sometimes went on vacation, sometimes not. And it wasn't very long if it was a vacation. So there's a little discipline, a little disappointment there, but I think it makes you tougher. And that's part of, as I look back at my life now, part of the good morals, the good ethics, and being respectful, but being hard workers. Because nowadays people complain about, I got to do this or that. And I go, man, you have no idea.
It creates a tenacity.
A
stick to it.
Right. That grit.
Grit. Yeah. That's a great word.
So actually, in hindsight, that was probably one of the best things that ever happened. And like your kids, Keith, at the time I went, oh man, this is not for me. But you do it out of respect. And so actually, I could say now that I'm glad I went through things like that. And it prepares you for, I think, the future of things to come in your life that you don't even know yet.
No way to know. And we still don't know some that are coming.
Right. So anyway.
So run me through after you graduated high school, just kind of, where'd you go to college? What'd you do? Like, tell me a little bit about your life.
Sure. Yeah. After high school, went to college, went to Oregon State.
Okay.
Go Beavs.
Go Beavs, yeah.
Although now I don't know what the future is going to be with the Pac-2, as everybody says. So I went to Oregon State, actually did some unique things there that maybe, I don't even know if you know, Keith. Wanted to, since no one really knew me per se, I thought, okay, I could kind of do things and not have anyone look at me like, really? You want to do that? So I don't know if you know this. I guess everybody's going to know now, but I was Benny Beaver back in 1975, 76. Yes.
Actually, I did know that.
Okay, did you?
Actually, I watch them to this day going,
Gary did that. That is not as easy as it looks.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't do a backflip or somersault to save my life now. But yeah, but I actually had to try out for that. And I was fortunate enough to try out for it and being in the beaver costume. And you're supposed to be anonymous, right? Well, I lived in the fraternity there at Oregon State. So all my fraternity brothers.
Pretty hard to be
Yeah. But they knew, but most people didn't. But, word gets out.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm glad I did that. That was in 1975, 1976. Okay. I was Benny Beaver. Then also, did my major was journalism with a minor in business and law, and took me 5 years to graduate. I'll admit that because actually, when you're doing the mascot, you travel with the football team, with the basketball team. I wouldn't say you're an athlete, but it's on that same schedule. So it took less hours academically that 1 year, and so but I knew it was a lifetime event. How many people can say they did that?
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll do it. So, and then after that, graduated and just lived in Portland, looking for a job opportunity. I always liked doing investments or something with finances, or something with the economy. And so got into being a financial consultant, doing 401k plans, mutual funds, annuities, things like that. So that was a bulk of my career.
Yeah. And then fast forward to not too long, you started a company.
Right. Yeah, I started
doing that.
Yeah, I worked for a firm in Portland, and see if I really liked that. And I did, and moved up the ranks in that company all the way to be a vice president. And I thought, gee, I always wanted to start my own company someday. So I did back in 2001, started my company. And actually, to this day, still have it. But I'm in the process of selling that company now because I have another passion that the Lord's called me to.
Okay.
So I'll be have my company going until probably the end of this year, maybe beginning of next year. I'm in the process of selling it or turning my book over actually to my son-in-law. So that works out great because he's in the same field and even has more credentials than I do. So I think it's going to be a good fit for my clients and for him and and the company he works for.
Good. So as you transition into that business and all of that, I go back to the name of the podcast. So you came from a farm.
Right.
And then now we're not talking about like gross earnings or anything like this, but do you feel like you kind of made your way a little bit?
I think I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a pretty humble guy, as you know, and really don't say too much. With the broker-dealer I was with, I was rated the #1 guy in the nation for, I think it was 6 or 8 years straight. So that brought a lot more respect, and not that I was looking for it, but I think it goes back to the farm days with good morals, good ethics, good working standards. Because we talk about grit. Yeah, I was almost 24/7. It would bug Ann crazy that I'd get up way early in the morning, look at what the markets did internationally and stuff, and she goes, "What are you doing up 3 or 4 in the morning?" And yeah. Because I want to know what happened already overseas. Because when we start our day, they're already done. And it could, as you know, it's a global economy, and things affect each other, whether you like it or not, or what happens overseas or not. So, maybe I was too fanatical about it, but when you do something like that, Keith, I'm on, or whatever I do, I'm all in. I believe that's the only way you can do it.
Okay, now we're almost out.
Yeah, now we're almost out.
So talk about this next piece of, and I'll use the term, use greatness. Like, I think we're put on this earth to do something great. I mean, that's obvious.
Right.
It's in the intro. It's in my heart.
Right.
I try to teach it to my kids, my grandkids. No, you're here to do something great.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean you you can play as an NBA center, right?
Right.
Because you're lower 5 foot something tall, or me either. I
Right.
did not have the ability, honestly, to play football like was my dream when I was 5 and 6 and 7 years old. That was not possible. But
Right.
we have opportunity out in front of us. We have opportunity for greatness that's instilled in us.
Right.
So here
Yeah.
you are, I don't know, in your 60s, right? And now,
Right.
now you're doing something new. And this is part of the process of you've gone to some greatness, and now literally you're stepping, right?
Right.
So what's that look like for you? Not necessarily what are you doing, how you doing it, but more of mindset. What's next for you?
Well, the mindset is, prayed about a lot. So I'm a prayer warrior. I'm pretty happy-go-lucky guy, pretty quiet. So a lot of people don't understand the other side of me, but I guess they will now since we're doing this. So I'm a big prayer warrior, and so it's coming to the Lord and saying, okay, now what? Like you're mentioning. But before that, the Lord was saying, okay, Gary, I think it's time to retire into something else. And I go, really? Because I kind of really enjoyed what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm in a groove here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I'm enjoying what I'm doing now, and built this company up per se. And, it's a little company. Once you think it's a big company, it's very little. But the Lord says, no, I think I have something better for you. And something that basically he's telling me, I'm not done with you yet. So you're not going to retire.
Yeah.
I mean, the joke between my wife and I was that I was retired for maybe half an hour.
Did that work out for you?
Well, it did.
It must not have worked out too well.
No, at the time we talked, but it worked out. She's very gracious, and she knows I got to be doing something.
Yeah.
Because she retired last December.
Okay.
And so our goals were to do things and travel and, just do nonprofit organizations and just help out. And so this opportunity came up. Well, I guess I need to go back a little bit. I had that tie in with Multnomah University here in Portland, Oregon. This is my 11th year there, but 10 years of it was part-time on the side. I was the assistant coach for the women's basketball.
Okay.
Now you say, really, Gary?
Yeah.
I mean, you're 5 foot what? you're in basketball? Well, the other story of me that you don't know is I worked a little bit, taught and coached at Portland Christian High School in junior high.
That's where I went to high school.
Yes, I know. I know that.
That's
and so coached basketball there and baseball. I'm a sports fanatic as well. Love sports. I think I have my philosophy is a little different. You look at me and go, really? He's a sports guy? So mine's more analytical in my mind.
I was going to say you're a strategist.
My strategist, analyzing and so forth. So you want to use that part. I mean, athletics, I'm okay. I mean, I can be competitive, but, I'm not going to be an NCAA D1 player by any stretch of the imagination. But I like sports. So I did that at Portland Christian. Then, lo and behold, about 10 years ago, Multnomah University was starting up now going back again, 1985, 1986, I was the assistant men's coach there for Coach Jim Skagen. May he rest in peace. And that's the basketball court's named Jim Skagen Court now. And because he had heard about me somehow, probably from my, I don't know. Anyway, so from there, I did that for a little bit and then went to Portland Christian. And then from there, I just kind of laid low after that. Got a call 10 years ago now from the athletic director and the ladies head coach there, Tim Bieri. They were starting a women's program. And so, you know how word of mouth is in small world. They reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in being the assistant coach there, or Tim did actually. And so we talked, and I said, yeah, why not? So basically, we started that program together, and lo and behold, that's how I ended up back at Multnomah on a part-time basis. And then currently, this is a long story, but I'm at Multnomah University full-time as one of the associate vice presidents and also the head men's golf coach, which another thing, I love golf, and that's sports related. So, yeah, so I know it's a long way to get there, Keith, but that's kind of the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah. And so that is the pathway to, you mentioned your kind of your faith, your prayer. And I assume that you don't just pray this way, you listen.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so this is one of the things that God's put on your heart. It sounds like,
right.
It's part of the legacy you leave, part of the greatness.
Right. And that's it's why I'm in the process of selling my business, and hopefully my son-in-law has taken over some of it already. Like I told you earlier, I got to be all in, and it's not fair to my clients to do both. Mm-hmm. And the Lord's calling me to do this now at this time of my life. Once again, He tells me, there's a purpose. I want you there, Gary, at Multnomah. I'm not done with you yet. And so your choice. You can be obedient to me or not. Wow, that's a no-brainer to me. Of course, I'll be obedient to the Lord. And there's some things, I don't know what I don't know either, but that's where you go on faith. Big time.
Yeah, that's for sure. I just heard a couple hours ago when I was on the phone with somebody, they said that listen and obey, or the versions of listen and obey, is said in Scripture 331 times. Now this person loves facts like this. And
Right.
And he's like, but 331 times? That's a lot.
That's a lot. If you don't get it by then.
It's a pretty big book, but the idea that must be one of the themes.
Right.
So if we want greatness, if we want prosperity in our life, if we want, however you define success, what I prefer to call fullness, fulfillment, then what are the keys to that? Well, it sounds like obedience.
Absolutely.
To the master,
right?
To the one that's speaking to us.
Right. Even to make it more interesting, and maybe you folks out there haven't heard, it's pretty recent, maybe the last, 3 or 4 weeks now, Multnomah University merger acquisition from Jessup University in Rockland, California, which is in the Sacramento area. So we will be now known as the Multnomah campus of Jessup University. Okay. That's a great thing, folks. I mean, a lot of people go, whoa, but the same values, same beliefs, putting the Lord first, and teaching for the kingdom to these students and athletes. So met with their athletic director a couple of weeks ago, and they'll keep the sports at Multnomah as Jessup University as well. And so another exciting move from the Lord. So never a dull moment, Keith.
Yeah. So that's the story.
Right.
Tell me a little bit, the thumbnail, when did you find faith? Was that from your parents? You've mentioned it, but we don't know where that started.
Right.
And then obviously we figured out by listening to you that's a big part of how this plays in.
Yeah.
But where did it start, and how did it grow to the point where you listened? You listened and obeyed.
Right. Well, I guess if you want to get the footprint of it, would be, ironically, my parents would take my brother and I to church in Hood River almost every Sunday. And they would drop us off there, but they wouldn't go. But they said, "This is good for you and your brother." I go, "Oh, okay." So so I guess
so there was a foundation.
The foundation there, but you want to know really when it really started. I mean, I'd have to say about 45 years ago. Ann and I have been married 40 years.
That puts you in your 20s somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And And I remember when we were first dating, I really liked her and vice versa. But there was at one point, I forget what date it was, that she would implement to me that, oh, you want to go to church with me on Sunday? And I go, church, Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Well,
But I know her parents.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was really important. To
Yeah.
them,
Right. Yeah. So, but I liked her enough that I said, okay, I'll go. Yeah. I figured I got nothing to lose.
God's got ways.
Yeah. Which I didn't know was going to evolve into what it is today. But so I said, sure, I'll go, and went with her and enjoyed it. That was, I could remember it was Pastor Jim Allen.
Oh, yeah.
That was
He
pastor.
performed our wedding ceremony.
Okay.
Almost 41 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So went and. Man, this isn't too bad, I liked the music and people were nice and friendly and so forth. And little announced to me is Ann's mom's prayer group was praying for me because Ann made this comment as, well, we're unequally yoked.
And you're like, what?
I go, what's that? And silly me, I'm thinking, wait, there's an egg and there's yolk inside. So what's that got to do with Christianity? What is that? Yeah. And so, once again, I didn't know what I didn't know back then. And then so she explained it to me and so forth. And so I just started going to church together with her. And I forget after how many years, at some point, I remember at night in my own apartment, it hit me, and I remember getting this little Gideon Bible. Remember those orange Gideon Bible, the little small ones?
The little New Testament plus Psalms and Proverbs.
Right. Yeah. But there's a piece in there, a couple pages if you want to accept the Lord. And it's hard to describe, Keith. It was just kind of a chill went through me like this. And I went, oh, man, what the heck is that? And it's just kind of leading me and thoughts in that Gideon Bible. And okay, I didn't really look at it before, so I opened it up and, if you want to accept. So I did that that night, and of course let Ann know the next day, and it started going from there.
Yeah, so that's a great point. I love that. So you opened it up. It offered you something.
Right.
Which you didn't know much about.
Right.
And you took the offer, so to speak.
Right.
And so you did the thing. Like you said, well, it says to do this. So that's what you did, more or less. And I've done that myself.
Right.
But you don't know much.
No.
Right.
No, I'm just an infant in that stage.
Yeah. And so, and then God does something.
Yeah. Right.
Kind of confirm and affirm us.
Right.
That says, that was good. You're on the right path.
Right.
How was that for you? Like, obviously there was confirmation. You told Ann, well, this is what I've done, but it could have been an act, but it wasn't an act.
Yeah.
So how did that come out in you? And then how did that come out to others to say, this really happened? Something really happened.
Yeah, no, I knew. No, it wasn't a fake. I wasn't doing it just for doing it because it was just that chill, like I said, and made me like this. And
that was prior to actually opening it.
Right.
It was just
that was
told you to do it.
Right. That was prior. That was bizarre to me. Like, oh, whoa, what is going on here? And it prompted me to pull out that drawer and grab that Gideon Bible and turn to that page. I felt good about it, actually, Keith. I felt
a miracle.
I felt good. I felt confident. I felt good. I didn't know what I didn't know from there, but I thought, this has got to be a good thing.
Yeah.
And then started going to church and getting involved there and in those groups, it's I wouldn't have believed it if it didn't happen. I mean, you hear stories about that, and people tell you this stuff. I can believe it now, but beforehand, I went, "Come on, really?" I think it's all in your head. Well, I'm here to tell you, it's not all in your head. It's the real deal.
It's the real deal.
Yeah.
And your life now, all these years later, proves it.
Right.
And not just you, your family, those around you.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
The church community we're part of.
Right.
If you look around and say, okay, these people really care about each other.
Right. Well, even the athletes that I coach now, the golfers, I got 10 guys. They're believers. They're pretty new at it, but so just the encouragement and how I can get involved with their lives or any situations or things that come up, and there have been. It's not bulletproof by any means. Nowadays
It's supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
But I take great joy and pride in being able to speak of the Lord to them and just talk about their situations and hear some scripture we can read, and I'll pray with them, and God, I enjoy that. That's what a thrill it is to develop these young men for the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost as good as a thing I can think of. And that's what it's all about, helping these young men shape their lives and their future and their careers.
Good. That's great. I love that story.
Yeah.
So one of them perhaps is listening to this, or somebody in their car, listening to YouTube, listening to us talk.
Right.
Or maybe it's someone, on a walk with their earpods in, right?
Right.
If you had one last phrase in regards to the fact that you've been put on this earth for something great by the Creator, by God, what would you tell them? You have one shot at it.
I would tell them there's a reason you're here. There's a purpose that you're here. Since God created you, He didn't create you just for the fun of it. He created you to have meaningful purpose, to make a difference, to just be useful to Him on your time here on earth. Now, you may not know what that is yet, or maybe you don't even know what it is now, but if you just be obedient to the Lord, He'll always have your back. I guarantee you. In fact, if I had to guarantee you anything, probably the best thing I could guarantee you is that He loves you, that He has your back, and you just got to be bold enough to accept Him. Because, hey, what do you got to lose? You have nothing to lose. I mean, He's the one that created you, and you wouldn't be here if He didn't have a purpose for you.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
I agree. Good. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So right there, to all the listeners, that's a pathway to greatness right there.
I think that's a start to it, at least.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the pathway is
Yes.
you got to get on.
Yeah,
it
you
at some point.
you got to get on that path.
Yeah, you got to get on the path, and that's the way to do it.
And I say, don't be afraid. You got to be able to take risks, calculated risk. But boy, if you accept the Lord with all your heart and all your might, and you mean it, you get on that path. Don't worry about, what do I do next? Now what do I do? It will come to you. The Lord will open up opportunities or situations, and then you'll know. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You'll know. Yeah. And right now you're thinking, but I don't know, and that's okay. But at least you're on the path. If you weren't on that path, nothing's going to happen.
Right. Absolutely.
Good
job.
So that's what I'm thinking.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad. I like this podcast to lay out at least the starting on the path, or maybe somewhere down the path. But thank you for that good word. Now I'll say to all the listeners, go be great.